Hello and welcome back to the Cymru Cactuars, and today I'm joined by Mr. Paul Fallon, who won the Cardiff Regional at the weekend. How are you doing, Paul?
Hey everybody, yeah, it's still not quite sure how I feel about this, excited, happy, but also bewildered, overwhelmed a bit. It's been a funny old tournament season for me. I've not performed very well coming into this matchup, but I think I've just worked at it today.
Happy at least to have murked your best friend to the cup.
Well, it's so funny that all format I was trying to chase that win against Mickey in casual, and that's what it all sort of boiled down to at the end. It's just sort of a end of season cliffhanger almost,
Oh, definitely. So yeah, you've been sticking with Ice Lightning throughout the format so far?
Well, about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, I pivoted back to it. It's always a deck that I have built and that I work on each format. But, I've been to about 6 big events now since the release of this opus. So 4 store celebrations, 2 regional, in the space of about 7 weeks. So, I mean, I've played a lot of different things like Knights, Gilgamesh, 7 Wall, Gigawall as it's known with Gilgamesh, FFBE.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, but I went back to Ice Lightning. I lost a ton of games, but I learned a bunch, and I just got comfortable with the deck and made some changes, and apparently did all right with it after a while.
Yeah, you always end up coming home to these things, don't you? Like, Earth Lightning's always in my back pocket.
Yep, 100%. It's about what cards you want to see win or lose, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what we always say when people have got like insecurities about what to take to an event. And you always say, what cards would you want to have in front of you and wouldn't mind losing with? Like, that's always the best way to look at it. So, any changes from, say, you've been using this for a few weeks now, any changes that you've made, that you made specifically for this event?
Okay, so my last barrage of changes to the deck, in a nutshell, were Kadaj, Theodore, then Kalia, Cheval, Kono, and Quan. Basically as replacement sort of backup engine cards, because I've taken out the Nero Wise Restrictor package. Maybe I'm not playing it correctly, but I just don't seem to get on with it very well. I find you draw all the pieces too early. It's very hard to get to the damage 5 protected Vice if you're seeing all of your cards to do with him and all the EXs to cycle into your hand early on.
I sort of agree. I think even if you end up like going from Restrictor right through to Nero, through to Vice, I always feel that you're sort of one card down at all points because of like what you paid to get there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this, my backup line is mainly about trying to get my 2 colors online as soon as possible. And if I can get 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 backups, that's extra. Because as long as I've got one of each color, I feel that I've got enough to be able to play at least something from my hand every turn with the limit break deck, of course.
Yeah.
So 2 backups is where I want to be. Going 2 backups with Nero, Restrictor into Nero, even if you have Weiss in your hand at the end, it just feels way too expensive and slow. And it just never really worked out for me. But yeah, that's mainly where I went with those. It's just to keep my backup line quite simple. And if I can get to a large number, great, but it's not necessary.
But looking at this, Alba's the only main deck 22 card in this.
Yes, so there was an event in, I want to say it was in Preston, maybe it was a store celebration. Paul from the YYT was running a very similar list to this, and he had Alba in there and Noctis. I was like, oh, hang on. These are great off of Al Cid.
Yeah.
And the EX bursts, because my Ice Lightning deck typically sits, well into the single digits of EX bursts most of the time. And this is currently at 14, although FFTCG doesn't show Noctis for some reason as an EX burst. It doesn't add to the count. So it says 12 on FFTCG.
And you've left us a note here as well to say that.
I'm the only person to leave a comment on an FFTCG ever, but here we are. There it is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love the Noctis. So like it, even saying it then, I didn't even notice sort of like, oh, you do get the break off of free play. It's just the casting restriction, which I suppose is sort of fine, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I've got Vincent, Shantotto, Y'shtola, and that's it really. But that's enough of my mainstay cards that are DFF. That means that sometimes once in a blue moon I can cast Noctis traditionally.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's an easy discard. And going back to Alba, I mean, without being able to be cheated in, it's still a 3-drop haste lightning forward that can sell something if Alcid is already on field. It's just an addition to. It's not a bad card to play from your hand. Feels a bit Opus 5 in terms of how that particular part of it reads, if the break isn't involved at all. But having, that haste body is essential sometimes, I would say.
So if there's anything 22 or Hidden Hope to talk about in this deck, it's the limit break stuff. Like, how much would you say it's made like a huge change and impact to what you've had in the last few weeks, and specifically on last Saturday?
Well, I mean, the limit break deck is, aside from Lightning Water, I think it's probably one of the best you can make so far out of the very limited pool of limit break cards. I mean, I'm happy to have all of them in there. The only one I'm sort of ropey on is Lightning.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never really felt the need to get a summon back, but I'd feel remiss if I didn't include it in there.
She's fantastic in Mono Lightning. But otherwise it's definitely Cloud and Victoria's your only LB2 sort of space, isn't it? So you get 2 LB2s and an LB1 out of this sort of list. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt just to leave it, just in case that is, end of the game, damage 5, that's what the push is for win. But I don't even know how many times on stream we just saw Sergi's dull that game. Like, absolutely foul.
Yeah, Sturgis is the real winner here. I mean, it's just, every deck that plays Ice now has an extra dull for free that they can unleash at any given time, and both the players know it'll be coming, but it's still there, and it just means that for every 1 blocker, you now need 2. Because Sturgis will, they'll take away a blocker every single turn, at worst, really.
Yeah.
I mean, not every single turn, but the threat of it being able to do that is there a lot. And it's just a really great card when you combine it with Alcid, of course, as well. It can become a dull freeze on entry or a double freeze if there's already a dull board.
Oh, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. So I know a lot of Ice Lightning decks moved away from Alcid, but like, even from the stuff we saw on stream and everything, it was just pivotal because it was always that extra push on whatever you did. You just had this extra dull or freeze value.
Well, this is what I was thinking about with Alcid, and I finally sort of clicked on what makes it a really good card, in my opinion, is that every extra dull and or freeze that you can get from this card just hanging about on the field will refund you in value over time.
Yeah.
So if you can get like 3 or 4 dulls and or freezes, I think they're worth about 1 CP each, roughly, in terms of math. So you sort of realize that Alcid is now a free body. And if you can get any more out of that, you're actually plussing in value. It feels weird when you have physically less cards on the board, but getting those effects to go off again and again and again is how you get your value, I think.
I think we saw on stream as well at one point, one was absolutely foul, was Alcid on board and playing the Lightning, leaving the CP open as well. So you get like extra dulls, you get freeze just for playing it.
Yeah.
Like dull for her to attack. Well, I think you use the attack on her, dull on Alcid, and then use the break effect from that so that she didn't pay for it. It was just horrible to see.
Yeah, those 2 cards together is very troublesome, shall we say. I mean, if you've got some empty backups as well, adding a break or 2 in there is horrendous. Doesn't come up a lot, because as soon as a lot of people see that Lightning, it's usually dulled or instantly broken from hand. I mean, it's immune to Amaterasu, of course, because it's all action abilities, but it does usually lend itself to being destroyed straight away as soon as it's revealed, because most players know that that's the problem.
Anybody that doesn't respect it will lose that game instantly.
Yeah, there's been many games where I've been quite by all accounts looking at the board state quite far behind, but playing this from hand and tapping 3 forwards with 3 backups on attack with a haste body, it's usually enough for me to push that last bit of damage through.
Yeah, like extra missing text that just comes from the other cards. It's just awful.
Yeah.
Anything that you'd change after this event at all to this list, do you think?
Right now, I think I'm sort of okay with where it is. I mean, there are always cards that I wouldn't mind fitting in for a bit more variety. 4-drop X-Death, the lightning one that removes break zones.
Sure.
I mean, there's no real way for this deck to search that card, but I feel that that particular card would be not a bad one-off just to throw in. If I was ever short of a lightning forward for whatever reason. Also, Behemoth K. I think that's quite an interesting card. It's got potential to like just do automatic damage when you're on damage 5, and I can also, with my deck, get them to damage 5 quite quickly. They very often use that time to stabilize and build up quite a big board of backups, but Behemoth K just sort of is an unanswerable set of damage to finish a game.
Sort of even having to put the work in, sort of thing. Yeah, like either they let it through or and die, or they kill it and die.
Yeah. It presents it like an unanswerable game state if you don't have anything to outright kill it from your hand.
What I thought would be really interesting to try, instead of the Vincent you've got in here, would be the Vincent from a few sets ago that like it targets a backup that doesn't activate so long as it's on the field.
I've thought about that one.
Like if you can because that might be something that's pretty good against like 4-color decks, like keep their Tyro down so that they can never play the Warrior of Light or something like that.
That's true. I mean, as a 3-cost, it's vulnerable to Cloud now, and I've had to play this deck kind of differently with the advent of Limit Break.
Yeah.
Because things like anything that's 3-cost in my deck, I can only really get it out for a turn. I mean, basically, unless they've already spent their Limit Break deck or they don't have Cloud, Zeramis is never going to dull their board, really. But it is going to use that piece of removal.
No, absolutely the case with that, yeah. So, I did like the Tono in there. I thought that was really interesting. So, like, just the discard for, like, make sure you're taking no chances and get that card gone. So that was really funny to see in, like, some of the final games on stream.
That came out a few times, but my initial choice was to put it in for what it is, not what it does. So, I mean, it's a searchable 2CP ice backup that I could potentially play turn 1 off of Kalia Cheval.
Yeah.
I've got to be really careful because the freeze on Tono is mandatory. So I can't play it when I have my own forwards. Yeah. So I was always a bit cautious playing it. But the discard did come in handy sometimes, like, to get Y'shtola to the right level of ping or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, it's just putting extra cards down in Y'shtola is like punishing it every single time. Like, Ice Lightning having access to as many haste cards as it does, just absolutely disgusting. But,
yeah, I mean, at its heart, it's an aggro deck, but I feel that I can sort of bring it into the mid-range a bit and slow it down and wait for them sort of thing and respond to their board state a bit, and cards like Y'shtola are great to keep back and put down at the right time sort of thing. Even though it feels like an aggro card, and it can very much be, it's also worth just keeping it back.
Both aggro and control is just horrible in everything that it does. Yeah, I hate every time that this is played on the board against me, because I'm just like, oh man, I probably lost now. It's that bad.
Yeah. It's an 8 or 9k ping out of nowhere is horrendous on top of a haze body.
You in Swiss went X1?
I did.
What was your loss?
Okay, so my loss was Pastor Sims playing the 50 forward trading card game, FFTCG.
We've got that one on here. So, let's pull that one up there. So that's nice. Not even fitting it here in the screen, so I'll make sure it's so 50 forwards, Kirin. Yeah.
So, I mean, loads of 4-cost forwards, loads of warp, which I discovered in my game. But, it's just a really cool idea for a deck. It's just completely off the wall and out there. It can present a really serious aggro board and surprisingly build backup after a few board wipes as well. So I was always cautious going into this, because this is definitely capable of doing aggro better than I can.
Yeah.
And in our game, I opened Izael, put down Theodore. I thought, okay, this will manage the hand size a little bit. He simply responded by warping 3 things on one turn, and then the next turn warping something else. so that her hand was completely empty and things were going to come in and ruin everything.
That's right. All you do then is Sid Randell, right?
Well, the funny thing was, I put Sid Randell down, but she then walked the Prish as the final card to pop it.
Oh, no.
So I was, okay, so that plan went out the window, unfortunately. But yeah, no, she played it really well. She got herself to top 8, I believe. But yeah, she did really well with this, and there was a couple of people in the room with the deck.
I played this deck against Likey Serve.
Likey Serve, that's right.
And I was playing Fire Lightning 38 EX bursts, and every time he tried to do something, I just sort of like, it was just like, cool, yeah, swing attack. I was like, okay, Odin, break the Kirin, like put everything into breaking the Kirin and like clearing the board. He plays another Kirin, but that Kirin tucks the third one to the bottom of the deck, and at that point, it's just like, cool, he's going to attack EX Odin, cool. And now I'm playing the board out, and he had nothing. So, cool guy, cool deck, love it. Foul to anybody that doesn't know what to expect with this.
Absolutely. I mean, shout out to Sean Kendrick, who's very much the inventor of this deck and good friends with Likey and Natasha. So, they both look to him for the guidance on what to play, and he's done very well with this, sort of thing over the recent events that I've played with him.
Yeah. Talk about your path through top 8 then. So who was your top 8 pairing?
So I first up was against Ben Roberts, who was playing a very traditional 4-color wall.
Incredible deck. I think he was the one that knocked me out of contention, to be honest.
Yeah. No, he's a very good player. It's always a tough game against Ben. He has a lot of very unique choices in here. Things like the Demon and Darkness Manifest don't usually crop up in 4-color wall. And those were quite scary cards. I think I did definitely lose game 1 because of Darkness Manifest, just chipping away a few extra damage and sealing the deal. I did manage to bring it back in the other 2 games, which actually is how I won all of my top cut games, was losing the first round and then winning the next 2. So I just want to be on the back foot.
Give them one, yeah?
Oh, emotionally, it was just more nerve-wracking. It was like, right, I'd made peace with not going any further in the tournament at the end of round 1 each time. I was like, this is it. This is the double loss for the day. And I was like, no.
I caught the end of your game 3 on this one. It was amazing to see, because everything that like you threw at him, he would recover, and then you'd be like, okay, cool, get rid of that, until you just managed to completely outvalue him, which when you look at this list doesn't even look possible. But there we have it. It was crazy, but he played a hell of a game in that one. But no match for Ice Lightning and the Fallon boys.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, shout out to Ben. No, he's a really great guy and a great player. And if it'd been a best of 5, I wouldn't have liked my chances. Can we just put it that way?
Top 4, you had
Gareth Statham.
So this is another one that I lost to this one 7-6. So, and the only reason, not the only reason, I always end up saying that. That's a horrible thing to say. The only reason, like really putting them down. No, the reason that I lost this game was that I didn't have the Lightning CP in hand to play for the Cloud Limit Break S effect. But otherwise, I had too much fire, so I couldn't do it. But gutting.
Oh, man.
He played. This deck is so cool, and I love the Type 0 engine. Just so that 9 and Ace say, you never getting your guys up at all.
No, it's such a strong control package for 7 cards. I mean, it really does work quite nicely. Trey to revive things, and the EX or S Effect 9K, is very very useful text to have on the card. This deck did well it won Swindon 2 weeks ago. I noticed there are some changes since that list, but he plays it really well. Very good player, plays it all very methodically. There's a lot of this deck can very much get to Tidus quite quickly, and it feels like he got to Tidus 2 or 3 turns earlier than most decks could. It just has a lot of value in there. There's a lot of EX bursts as well, and I did notice in games 2 and 3 that he didn't seem to hit many EX bursts, and I'm not going to say it was all because of that I won, but that certainly helped.
24 as well, yeah.
So I dodged a lot of
you're
EX
not the
bursts.
only person. He's been in here as well.
Oh wow! Starting a comment revolution.
So he's changed it since then. So that's a few.
Oh, okay.
But
Nice
nice
one,
to
mate,
add that in. But
yeah, that's interesting.
You know, it's
that was a great game.
Yeah, well, the Statham boys are always a good laugh for these things, and always put up a hell of a challenge. But
absolutely,
this is a list up. It's probably my favorite Water Lightning I've seen, like just with stuff that's my sort of flavor in. So I think I'll be sleeving this one up and just seeing if I can be as nasty as him with it.
After Swindon, I did sleeve up his deck for practicing, and it was quite good. There's a lot of very quick haste plays you can make. It's quite scary how quickly you can get things going with it. It's really cool.
And of course, then the finale against Mick, which was wow. We were talking, we had it on this. We thought, well, we'll give the guys some space. We'll put the stream up on the TV and we'll watch it there. And we couldn't have asked for anything better for a finale that was action-packed, full of drama on every single turn, where it swings from this to that, and it was just a hell of a. Every single time I was watching it with Jack Canavan, and it was just like, oh no, he's lost. Oh, he hasn't do this, and then it turns around and be like, oh no. He's managed to do that. He's fine. He's going to do it, and then it would be the same every turn, and just what a cool list. One of the things that we often say about Mick is because he doesn't get around too much, and he's known mainly by people that come to Cardiff more than anything. But Mick is one of the most underrated deck builders in the UK.
I would absolutely agree with that. 100%. We
know so many people. He's got so many off-kilter choices so often. You're like, oh, I'm not really sure about that. And then he wipes the floor with you. We know for a fact there's many players in the UK who shall remain nameless that are absolutely terrified of pairing up against him just in case, because they don't know what the hell is going to come out of his deck box and his play mat. That's just a big issue.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I've played. I was thinking about this over the 8 years. I've probably played a couple of thousand games with this guy. So I mean, the Final Fantasy TCG is a nice hobby that me and my friends play, but it was so weird to have the end of a big competitive season be me versus Mick. Out of all the traveling I've done to all the events and stuff, and all the different people I meet along the way, and it's Mick who's at the end, which is quite a fun.
You were training to beat him.
Yeah, it was, because I'd actually never beaten this deck outside of testing. Maybe once I decked him out, and then he just played differently to make sure he didn't deck out.
This is the anime story we needed. This is the Paul Fallon training arc where he finally managed to topple the giant himself.
It did have somewhat of a traditional narrative structure, so we say. Going into this deck real quick. I mean, there's some really fun choices in here. I mean, obviously he's gone for the Lightning 8 stuff from this set, specifically Fujin, Raijin, Sifa.
Yeah.
And ways to actively manage it, like Leviathan, the Summon, and Astrologian specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some really fun opportunities to make sure that your top of your deck is loaded with exactly what you want for the optimum Sifa flip, and suddenly things have gotten out of hand, and you can, as you've seen on the stream, I'm sure he's very capable of just building a whiteboard seemingly out of nowhere, especially when you can manage the top few cards to, maybe even just put a dirty EX on top and wait a turn, knowing that he's safe with a 7-drop Odin on the top of his deck.
But, and as well, some of the way he manages to play this, which is, again, he's quite an unconventional player as well, but you just don't feel that there's one Irvin in this deck. There are 3, if not 4 copies of Irvin in this deck, because it comes down again and again and again, and it's just, it's punishing in how he does it. But an underrated choice, which a completely genius, is that if you're going to put this many cards in the break zone that quickly, put Light Tidus in there so that you can get it for free.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I really like this as a choice. I mean, it's another EX burst. It's awkward removal in that you put things to the top or bottom, I believe. It's
just the bottom, I believe. Yeah, it was bottom.
Yep. So that's oppressive in its own right. You're not going to hit an EX forward anytime soon. Problem cards can just go right to the bottom of the deck. But yeah, having it play for free as well is really nice. It fits in with the theme of his deck. But it doesn't clash with the other Tidus either, which, very much like Gareth's deck, Mick can quite easily build to a board where Tidus is more than possible way too early than what you'd expect.
It's just he plays it so oppressively, and just with all the control things, and his sequencing in those games was flawless, and just great to see, and lovely to see these just off-kilter choices and stuff, and nice to be able to show off mixed stuff on stream as well. But no, even so, there we go. There we have it. I suppose that's the regional. Hell of an event. Really difficult room as well. There was some of the best players in the UK there. There was a lot of people that had used buys from winning store celebrations, and there's you on the way up from round one. Just absolutely incredible stuff all around. So to you, congratulations entirely. It was not an easy room, was not an easy win, but you absolutely smashed it, mate.
Well, thank you very much. Shout out to everybody who was there. It's always a great time to go to a tournament and meet nice people, win or lose.
Right, so I guess we'll finish that up here. So, Paul, thanks for joining us. If anybody else wants to see this deck and the others we've mentioned in action, you'll be able to see them on the stream, on the channel. But for anything else, we will see you next time. Thanks very much.
See you again.